excited to be here. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. This is truly one of my most favorite groups to come to. And, because we get to hear the story behind the story. And so I am going to, I want to be raw and real. I want to share some really funny stories that have happened to me along the way, some gut-wrenching stories along the way. And I am a transformational life coach as well as an author of a best-selling book, Summit to Soar, The 5 Stages of the Rise of a Woman. And one of the things that I have learned along the way is that to be a leader, there are a few key principles in really stepping into being the leader. And not just a leader outside of yourself, but really first and foremost just being a leader of yourself. And so I have a few things to leave with you today, but as I talk to women and men, one of the things that keeps people stuck is the idea of being afraid of failure. But I've learned that I don't think we're so much as afraid of failure as we are afraid of success, because we end up failing every day. Like we tell ourselves, oh, I'm failing. So we fail, we get comfortable with failure. And so, but when you view success as a pathway that is paved by failure, then you're not afraid to get out and fail anymore. And so that's really my story and my journey is if I can't take a credit for a whole lot, but if there's anything I could take credit for, it would just be that I have not been afraid to get out there and fail and just take action. And so that's really what I'm going to talk to you about today. This idea of perfection, going for perfection can just keep us stuck and spinning our wheels. And, waiting on, the perfect moment, the perfect timing, the perfect environment for us to take that next step. That holds us back. But if we're waiting for perfection, then that stops us from action. And I discovered that there are 2 meanings of perfection. And one of those meanings is flawless. And that's usually what keeps us stuck dead in our tracks, is that idea of flawless. We're so afraid to fail because we think that success equals a lack of failure. But success is not a lack of failure. So when you go after flawless, it stops you from taking action. But there's another meaning to perfection, and that is accuracy. And if there was one thing that I want you to take away today, we're at Inspired Leaders, and you are all leaders of your own lives, of your businesses, in your community. And I want you, if you could walk away with one thing, I want you to get out there and practice failing. I want you to get out there and go after accuracy, not flawless. And so, I was talking to a group of ladies. I did a Zoom class. They were all over the United States, and we were talking about this idea of being afraid of success, afraid of failure. And because I've written a book and done some things, I asked them. I said, "Well, what makes you? Do you think I'm a success?" And they all just gave me this resounding, "Oh yes, you're a success." And I said, well, what gives you the idea that I'm a success? Like, where did you come up with that? Because I don't drive a fancy car. I don't live in a big house. I don't even have that big of a social media following. I'm working on it. It's getting there. But I said, like, what makes you think that? And they came down to 2 things. And that is, number 1, because I just show up. To take action. And the second thing is because they saw me as a success because I was impacting their lives. And so really, success is not the lack of failure. Success is just a pathway that is paved by failures that you just get out there and show up take action and make an impact. And that is success. And so I just want to share a little bit of my story and my journey to prove to you that going after flawless, it doesn't bring the sense of significance, fulfillment, and true joy. But going after accuracy really does. So I was raised in the Midwest. I was the dorky Christian girl. Some things never changed. Thought I would say it before my son said it. But you know, I was raised in the perfect Christian home. My dad was a pastor. We were very involved in ministry as a family, and we planted churches. We were making a difference in people's lives. I was very involved in my youth group. Getting through school, through high school, was just kind of I just kind of went to school just to be able to get to church. And knew very early on that I was called to help people. And so I went to Bible college. I had prayed and I had said, I am willing to just, all I want to do is, even if I just have to go on the mission field, whatever, I just want to make an impact on people's lives. And went to Bible college, met a fiery young preacher, and I ended up, we got married. We took our first church the same month that we got married, and we were just, making a difference in people's lives. We were kind of the place to go to see how to do it. We did a lot of inner city work. We won awards for helping bring crime down in our city, and we were just, I thought I was living my dream. I was the perfect wife, and I went after, my whole life, I went after flawless. But my whole motto for life was, it's better safe than sorry. And so I went after flawless. And I was the perfect wife. I was the perfect mom. I had all my babies at home, a little bit of a hippie, I guess. I homeschooled my kids, and I have 4 kids and 4 grandkids now. But, I had built this perfect life, and I was the perfect pastor's wife. I ran a mentorship program for women, mentored over 300 women for 3 years. I ran a huge children's ministry and trained leaders and did a lot of counseling. I helped people save their marriages. Everything was perfect. But something happened along the way. And going after flawless, it left me, I still was feeling like empty. And I remember we'd have testimony night at the church, and I'd get up and hear these people, get up and give their testimony. I was off drugs and, just telling these incredible stories. And I was on the streets, and now, I'm at a home. And I used to just cry and say, I don't have a story. I don't have a testimony. Do not tell God that you don't. That's opening a can of worms right there. And,
that's funny.
But I had built this, what I thought was a perfect life. And so, after 22 years of being married in a ministry, my now ex-husband, he made some choices that didn't include the ministry and didn't include his family. And it sent my world into a tailspin. And, all of a sudden, here I was, the one that, helped people through all kinds of stuff. Now I was the divorced, single mom, bankruptcy, foreclosure, just my whole life had just become annihilated. But, in my book, Summon to Soar, the 5 Stages of the Rise of a Woman, it's a little bit of my story and my journey. And I show how every individual has an opportunity to go through 5 stages of personal development to make their greatest impact. And one of the things I show is that the journey of the caterpillar to the butterfly really mimics our own human experience and offers a lot of hope and how we can keep going and keep moving forward. And so in the book I talk about when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, the caterpillar does not turn into a butterfly. The DNA of a butterfly is inside of the caterpillar. But something happens when that caterpillar goes into the cocoon. Enzymes are released that literally melt her into nothingness. They actually call it pupa soup. It turns her into a liquid form. And sometimes we go through life and all of a sudden life does not look like the way it used to. But because the caterpillar does not turn into the butterfly, that old encasement that contained the DNA of her greatness has to be completely liquefied. And so the DNA of greatness is inside of you. The DNA of purpose is inside of you. The DNA of who you were created to be is inside of you. And sometimes when life comes along with a crisis, it comes along and it melts the old woman and man that has been created by fears, failures, and imperfections. But it's a necessary part of the process to let go of the old so that you can literally transform into who you were created to be. And so, I found myself, all of a sudden, my whole world had just completely changed. And I felt like that little caterpillar. All of a sudden, I felt like my life had turned into pupa soup. And I remember saying to my mom one day, I remember just crying, and I said, I just don't even feel like I fit in my own life. And so I went from preaching in the pulpit. I had never had a job outside of the ministry. I had never worked outside of the home other than the ministry, and found myself in a situation where I didn't know how I was going to support my kids. And so I took the first thing that came along, and that was selling windows door to door. I don't wish that upon my worst enemy. That is not a fun job. But what that really taught me was to not be afraid of rejection. And after coming out of such a deep rejection in my relationships and the community that I had given my life to serve, I think it's so incredible that I had an opportunity to get out there and learn that rejection, it's not going to kill me. I went in, I got the job. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it was a job, and they promised me, money right away. And so I was trained by this old school salesman. And he would drive up to a door, and he would say, okay, now get up, go ring the doorbell, and go say this. And I would, I'd go say what he said. I'd come back to the car crying. And he'd say, what did you say? And I'd say, well, this is what I said, and this is what they said. And he'd say, get out there and do it again. Okay, so I'd get out there and do it again. And, but that it really built a resilience in me that I didn't know I was even capable of. And I ended up winning awards out of 5 states and a $1 million producer. And it gave me a level of confidence that I didn't even know I had. So I did that, and so I went from preaching in the pulpit to selling windows door to door. I went from wearing a Rolex with diamonds to standing in the food stamp line. In fact, I was standing in the food stamp line with my Rolex on. So when everything had happened, I knew I needed money to survive, and so I sold all my jewelry. But I had this Rolex, and I had tried to sell it, and I knew that I couldn't get a lot for it. You know, they were really trying to just take it from me. And I just had a feeling if I could just hold on to it, that I'd be able to get rid of it. And so, you know, you don't have to ever take a Rolex off. And so I just left it on. And I met moved into an apartment. And, you know, we went from a Texas ranch to living in an apartment, sleeping on the floor, eating on the floor, and playing Yahtzee on the floor. And in that apartment, I met these ladies who I called professional singles because they had been single for a very long time. And they knew how to do it, you know. And so we all had kids the same age, and so they were like, look, you know, I was literally digging in the couch for quarters, like, how am I going to feed my kids? And so my one friend says, oh, honey, you need to go stand in the food stamp line. And I was like, surely not me. I can't. This is what I used to help people, you know, when they would come right out of prison or whatever, you know, but me? And she said, no, you just go down there. This is what it's for. And so I said, okay, well, I have to feed my kids. I need food. So I went down to the food stamp line, and I stood in line, and my friend called me. And I went in my purse to get my phone to answer it, and all of a sudden I looked down, and I had my watch on, and I was like, ah! And I took it off and put it in my purse. And so about a month later, I walked into a jewelry store, and my friend was working there. And they bought and sold used Rolexes. And so he went to his manager, and he told him my story, and he said, I need you to do the absolute best that you can for her. And I was able to sell it for a very good price, and that's how I bought my kids Christmas that year. And so, you know, going from a pastor's wife, and that's all I knew how to do, you know, but I thought, well, I have to fall back on some of the skills that are just natural to me. And when you're a pastor's wife, you're a networker. That's what you do. And so I had lost my community, but somehow instinctively I knew that I needed a community during this time. And so I'm going to tell you that I was extremely, extremely naive at this time of my life. And I had never been, you know, out in the world. I was immersed in the church world and never been out in the world. And extremely naive. And so, but I knew I needed to find a community. And so I Googled how to meet women. Well, I came up with some really interesting things. But one of the things that I found was this group, and it was a meetup group. And this is a little embarrassing, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because it's just part of my journey. But I found a meetup group, and they were called the Hot Women of Boston. I joined the Hot Women of Boston. And but those ladies became a community for me. And their whole thing was just, you know, to support each other, get out and have fun. And, but you know, again, just being so naive, I thought, well, I know that number one, I need a community, and number two, I really need to like get to know people. I need to just start inviting people for coffee or to have lunch so I can get to know people's stories. And so I had no idea, but I would just meet somebody and I would say, hey, we need to hook up. And I had no idea what I was saying. I guess apparently we need to hook up means something different to others. So I was saying, you know, I was like, man, like everybody wants to have coffee with me. I'm so And so anyway, finally I had said that to a young man who apparently was was gay, and I said, hey, we need to hook up. And he looked at me like deer caught in headlights, and I said, what do you mean? What do you think I'm saying? And he set me straight. And so I will never ask you to hook up, don't worry, but I might ask you to have coffee. Just being a leader, deciding to be a leader of your own life, and not being afraid to take risks. I found myself in my previous life that my motto was, it's better to be safe than sorry. And then when tragedy happened, this crisis, and I realized that old motto wasn't going to work for me anymore. And so there's a quote that I started to live by, and it says that ships in harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are built for. And so I decided that I was ready to hoist the sails and get out on the seas. And if I had to come back and scrape off the barnacles, I was just going to do it. And so I just started building my new life. That was in Austin at the time. Sold the windows door to door for about 3 years. And then my daughter went to Texas Tech, met a young man who was from the Woodlands, and their family owned an oil and gas company here in the Woodlands, and we had got to be friends with them. And they said, why don't you, I was completely exhausted and burned out, and I had been avoiding my cocoon. I was just trying to survive and just trying to kind of avoid really dealing with the pain that I had been through. And so they said, why don't you come to the Woodlands, just work here, and you can just sit at a desk. And so I did. And that's how I got to the Woodlands. And during that time, I'd always done counseling. During that time, I met a life coach. And she really just rocked my world, and she helped me move forward faster. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get my certification. So while I was sitting there at that desk job, at night I was getting all my certifications. And finally, at one point, I said, I have to go follow my dreams. I have to go follow my passion. I have to take action. And I knew at the time that I wanted to start writing. I felt like there was a book in me somewhere. And so I wanted to practice writing. And, God just sends angels into your life at the right time. And that's when I met Janet on my door. And she had the magazine behind the gates. And so a friend introduced me to her, and I said, I just want to practice writing. So she hired me, and I wrote for the magazine for several years, and that helped me to get to know people and put myself out there, and also to hear other people's stories. So I did that, and then eventually I started my business, launched out. I said, I have to do this, and launched my coaching business, and just it was really an amazing journey. I started getting clients, I started getting confidence with that. I was writing, and then finally, just after Harvey, I had to move back in with my parents who had just moved here. They were they're missionaries, and they had just retired and moved here to be with us. And I had moved back in with them after Harvey. And I went to a ladies' meeting one night, and the pastor's wife was preaching about, just taking action, getting out, doing whatever it takes. And so, for some reason, I came home the next morning. That was on Good Friday, not this last Good Friday, but a year ago. And I got up 6:30 the next morning, ran to my computer, and I literally had what I call a divine download. And that was the name of the book, the stages of the rise of a woman, the chapter names. And I had been journaling and writing all along, and I realized that everything had fit into, it was fit into those 5 stages. Everything I had been writing, everything I had gone through, I recognized when I had been in the caterpillar stage, I recognized my cocoon. So I started writing, and 9 months later, on January 10th, is when I had the book launch party. And so it's been a lot of fun. as I wrote the book and just, again, taking action as a leader and not being afraid of risk, not being afraid of risking, what people are going to think about you, how people are going to view you, like just putting all that aside and just going for it. When you put your life on paper, then it's out there for the world to read. But it really, as women started reading it, it started waking women up. And I get calls on a daily basis and they say, okay, what do I need to do to rise? And so that led to what I'm about to launch on July 1st. And as I work with women one-on-one, it's very intensive, I give my guts. Coaching is not therapy and it's not counseling. It's really for the well woman who is ready to move forward. And so, but I help women discover, because of the identity crisis that I went through, I help women discover their mission, their vision, their purpose, their intrinsic core values, their passions and potential. And so, as I talk to women and I work with them one-on-one, there's been an opportunity for me I want to work with more women. So on July 1st, I'm launching what's called the Flutter. A flutter is a group of butterflies. I never intended to become the butterfly lady, but so I'm launching the Flutter, a virtual empowerment center for women. And so guys, don't feel left out, because in January we are going to launch a men's version, a virtual empowerment center for men, but I promise you it will not be called the Flutter. So don't get scared. But just to live, keep making an impact. And there's my favorite part of the book, and I will close with this. I have no idea what of my notes I have gotten to. I look at it one time. But my favorite part of the book is that, and I want to leave this with you today, is that when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and she stays committed to the transformation that is longing to take place, something begins to happen. The caterpillar is melted away. She grows her wings. She goes from having beady little eyes to multifaceted eyes. So she has a new vision, and she can see from a new perspective. And she has, instead of tiny little legs that hinder her mobility, she now has long, beautiful legs that can help her get to where she wants to go faster. Not only does she have legs, but now she has wings that can help her fly higher than she's ever been before. But she's fully formed as a butterfly, but she's all wrapped up in the cocoon. And that place of transformation has become uncomfortable. And sometimes we come to that place of being comfortable in the uncomfortable. And so she's all wrapped up around herself, and she begins to feel the urge to break out. And so right before she breaks out, the cocoon becomes transparent. And right before you're ready to break out, I believe you'll go through a process of becoming transparent and vulnerable. And what I mean by that is transparent and vulnerable about your story. That no longer does your story cause you shame and pain and guilt, but you come to the point where you say, you know what, everything I've been through is being given as a gift for me to help someone else. So you become transparent about your story. And so here that cocoon is transparent. And she begins to kick her way out. And breaking out is hard work. And some of you are in a place where you feel like you're fully formed as a butterfly. You've let go of the caterpillar thinking, and you've been fully formed and you're ready to break out, but you might feel discouraged that I didn't think it was supposed to be this hard. I'm a butterfly now. But she starts kicking and kicking and kicking, and finally she falls to the ground in exhaustion. And as she gets back up, there's one thing that happens inside the cocoon. When the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, she cannot excrete. She can't go to the bathroom. So there's times in our lives when we come face to face with, our fears and our imperfections and the woman and the man that was maybe fashioned by I'm not good enough. And so we come face to face with that. But if we stay committed to the transformation, then as that little butterfly begins to break out, she gets up after falling to the ground exhausted, and she begins to flap her wings, and they're wet and they're heavy and they're gooey, but she just starts flapping and flapping and flapping. And as she flaps her wings, all of the excretion that was in the cocoon with her gets shot back up into her body and gets infused into her wings. All of the crap that you've been through in your life is what gives you the strength to fly. So I just want to leave you with that today. Don't go after flawless. Go after accuracy. Flawless does not leave room for failure. Accuracy allows you just to keep failing forward. Accuracy allows you to be accurate with who you are, why you're here, and what you're here to do, and make the impact that you were called to make. Because I believe everyone in this room has a call. Everyone in this room has a hurt to heal, a story to tell, a wound to heal, to help someone else. And so you get out there, don't go after flawless, go after accuracy, because you have been summoned to soar. I did bring books to sell. If you, over here, if you would like a book, if you want to sign up for the flutter, you can. We can do that. If you want to buy t-shirts, hashtag the flutter, we can take orders for that too.
They're awesome. Thank you so much.
I want you to